as some of you who watch this channel regularly may notice, I tend to get a little angrier and assholier than necessary sometimes. And my most disliked video of all time, which happens to be my second most viewed video of all time, and will likely become my first relatively soon, it's a good example of me engaging in that suboptimal behavior. And so I wanted to address that specifically, and then kind of explain where I'm going to, or what I'm going to work on going forward. So the video is me responding to Philosophy Tube's criticism of Jordan Peterson. And overall, the substance of the criticism more or less remains the same. There are things that I would word differently, but certainly the number one thing I would change is the following line. However, I also feel obligated to point out that most of what she says regarding Jordan Peterson is ignorant and ill-informed and worthless. Now, imagine that you are Philosophy Tube and you spend a month putting together a very sophisticated, very complex project, offering a criticism that you genuinely believe in of a very public intellectual who, deserves to be criticized given his standing. And then somebody who claims to be, a supporter of or a fan of that public intellectual says, hey, I like your video, but ultimately it's worthless. It's better off if it didn't exist. That is... Well, it's not. First off, it's a lie. Simply by Philosophy Tube making her criticism of Jordan Peterson, it's an opportunity for then me or anyone to respond to it. And so to call it worthless is literally a lie. I made a video that has a lot of views. So purely from a selfish perspective, it's hypocritical to say that's worthless. And it's just a rude thing to say. Here's another part of the video I kind of cringe at. But overall, I think this video is just one more piece of evidence that most of the criticism, not all, but most of the criticism people make against Jordan Peterson is irrelevant and should be dismissed as such. Now, look, obviously I make a lot of videos explaining Jordan Peterson's ideas. He's had a very significant impact on me personally, and, with all the psychological advice and all that stuff, like, that has been genuinely helpful. And so there is a part of me that gets upset emotionally when, people say, oh, well, this guy's a bad person, or people who like him are terrible people or dumb people. And I do think there is a lot of bad faith criticism like that, and perhaps you could say most of it is like that. But saying something like, well, most of the criticism should be just dismissed, as irrelevant. It's like, okay, well, again, that's not a very sophisticated way to say things. So, and just for background for people who don't know, I started this YouTube channel 4 months into therapy. And one of the things I learned in therapy was, I used to think of myself as someone who didn't get angry very easily. I worked at a bar in college, and, people could call me all kinds of names and spit on me and shit. And I would keep my cool almost all the time. So I thought, oh, well, I'm not a very angry person. And that clearly is not the case. And, again, it's not that there's anything wrong with that specifically, because I think there are a lot of reasons to be angry given how falling apart the world appears to be. But it's a mistake to kind of let that kind of take control and be like, ooh, well, this feels good, and I'll call people. Here is a clip from a video I did after the Capitol riots, which, again, was kind of an emotional time given how crazy everything was. That is just the pure archetypal representation, quote unquote, of me being a pathetic, angry dweeb. As far as the people justifying the violence on Capitol Hill, I see very little of that, to be honest. The only people who I've seen do that are the, what would you call them? The cockroaches on the alt-right, the white supremacist people, Nick Fuentes and the like. Now look, Nick Fuentes is a kid who is a right-wing troll comedian type character. He plays a character. Like, Nick Fuentes online is literally a character. And for me to sit there and call him a cockroach, it's like, first off, there's an argument to be had that no human being deserves to be called a cockroach. And if they do, it would be reserved for, human traffickers and serial murderers and whatnot. Not stupid kids that are just so cringy in and of themselves and self-defeating with their own, foolishness, that for me to be like, oh, well, this kid's a Nazi and F this kid, it's like my own anger is allowing me to be taken advantage of by, a dweeby little comedian who's going to be irrelevant with his own stupidity. So that's just, one more example of the kind of foolishness that happens when you allow anger to take control. So here's the whole point of the video. I feel like I have enough to say and enough to offer in these videos without having to call anyone a cockroach or say that they're worthless or any of that. Now, if I'm in a debate and somebody starts coming after me with cheap shots or is just being kind of an asshole, well, I'll call them out for it, and I'm not afraid to, fight back if I'm getting bullied online. But I'm not going to come into any discussion, looking for that. One of my personal heroes is a man named Daryl Davis. He's a black musician who has converted over 200 KKK members simply by talking to them. He is literally the closest thing to a living saint that could possibly exist, in my opinion. And he is certainly not a pushover or someone who's, too nice or whatever. He is someone who leads with empathy, and that is what I want to try to do. There's a verse in the Bible, as many of you may know, that Jordan Peterson points out is interpreted improperly. The verse is, "The meek shall inherit the earth." And what that really means is those who have the capacity for aggression and the capacity for anger, let's say, but choose not to use it, they will inherit the earth. And going forward, that is what I'm going to try and live by. And I have this video out here publicly to hold myself accountable to. Everyone watching who has followed this channel, who I'm greatly appreciative of and get good feedback from, and in part did this video because of that feedback, you can hold me accountable as well. So, with that, good luck and Godspeed.